Hi, my name is Bill Gardner, and I am the founder of LogoLounge. And I want to, again, thanks out to Pixel Show for asking me to do one of these sharp talks. This is going to be about 20 minutes of the history of LogoLounge. Now, what's in a name? And what the heck is LogoLounge? Well, we're going to find out all that behind here, but I've got to tell you, I'm kind of surrounded by a little bit of the accoutrement that goes with a lounge, and I had never intended for LogoLounge to come across as a lounge, but sometimes you take advantage of what you can. And over the years, we've kind of created our own little lounge affair here. And we find that when we go out and we visit with people, that we actually are able to dress up in the orange jackets, and orange is our color, and play out a little bit of the lounge atmosphere that goes on. Even though if you were to go behind this wall, which is where LogoLounge really is, not much loungy back there. But I will tell you that the best part about it is that there are really, really good people that make LogoLounge happen, including, and I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about Troy Tabor, previous members Kathy Fischel, Brian Miller, also Gail Leese, myself. The team that's back there includes Jay Walter, includes Ellen Mosman, and Tony Gaston. And it's a real amalgam of people that have kept this thing churning over this period of time. But let's go back to 1995. I'm going to start here because I love this picture of Jay Leno and Bill Gates back when Bill Gates was geeky around Jay Leno, and Jay Leno probably had more money than Bill Gates. But this is going to give you a chance to kind of, if you're old enough, reminisce to 1995 and what was actually going on in the world of the internet and computers and design versus what's going on today. And I realize that there's probably any number of you that weren't born yet in 1995, but it was at the infancy of the internet. And this is where the LogoLounge story starts. I love identity design. I love graphic design. I love logo design especially. And I literally have shelves and shelves and shelves of books that might be called catalogs sometimes. Others are textbooks on identity design and logo design. And as a designer, if you are looking for reference, there's a lot of reference to be found inside the books, but there is very little context within the books, which means that if I were, for instance, designing a logo that I was looking for a picture of a horse for, I may spend the better part of the day going through all those books, page after page, looking for pictures of horses and post-it noting them. So you could spend enormous amounts of time with this flurry of post-it notes going into books, and what you may end up with might end up being this group of pictures of horses that you can kind of use as reference. Now, again, keep in mind how things were done. At that time, it wasn't easy for you just to scan something out of a book and to pop it up there on your document that you're working on. So you might end up going back to a copy machine and making a photocopy of it and having that there at your desk. And there might be a tracing pad that you're tracing over the top of. So a little bit different world at the time. But we recognized that the design industry was changing. And we knew that the idea of the internet was going to be really critical to what was going to happen to the way we design and designers and their design thinking. Now, I had favorite books, and some of my favorite books included this really wonderful series from Deco Press that covered all of these various countries during the 70s and many of the logos that were designed there. But the way the books were designed, they were each specific to certain countries. So there was a level of context to those books. As I got into them, there may be a picture of a horse right next to a picture of a triangle next to a picture of a house. No context there, but at least there was context of where they came from. There was another series of books, this particular one by Yasuburo Koyama that I think are two of the best books ever designed on logo design. And they came out in the 70s too. And this particular set of books, one of them was on letter form design, another one on figural design. And as you got into them, one of the really wonderful things about them is that as these books were put together, he found a way to sequence the logos so that they made sense. Now, if you'd ever imagined going into a grocery store and that grocery store might have, for the purpose of conversation, 10,000 different items, if somebody just ran in and dumped the 10,000 items in there, you'd never make it out because there would be no context to where those items are. The cat sand might be right next to the Clorox bottle, might be right next to some hot tamales. I'm just saying that, the context is what helps you be able to pathway through a grocery store and to find what you need, because things are logically, hopefully, next to where they need to be. And I found that as you looked at his logos in these books, that they made sense the way that they were laid into the book. Now, again, jumping back in time, this will be a surprise to you because it's always a surprise to me to kind of look at what was going on at different times. And I always amaze myself at this. But in 1995, eBay was introduced. Up until that time, there was no eBay. There were modems that were, making all those loud noises and things. And that was how we got our information on the internet. And it was a little bit arcane. But eBay was just being introduced. And Meg Whitman and the other founder of eBay found that they were able to provide context to things that people wanted to sell. And I love this idea. And you start to think about it. So Meg and Riley Windsor, somewhere in England, are sitting around having their tea when suddenly Riley points out that the teapot they're drinking from was one that had been passed down through 12 generations of his family, and that the teapot might be worth more than they actually think. To which point Meg goes out and finds out, damn, that thing is worth hundreds of pounds. So they take a snapshot of that particular teapot, and Meg goes and puts the thing onto the computer. On the computer? Well, online. Sure enough, there it is, 1995. That's the iMac G3, Bondo Blue. And we're all pretty darned excited. And sure enough, the internet has just come up. And as I start to take a look at the internet, I realize that I've just typed in teapot, and there are actually 5,000 some teapots to choose from. Why am I talking about this? It'll come to you. There's that teapot. $545 is the opening bid on that thing. And there's information about the teapot. It tells what it's made out of. It tells who the maker was. It tells the approximate size. It tells you how much it weighs. It goes into further detail, talking about other information associated with the teapot. It even pulls up other teapots that are kind of like that teapot. Why am I talking about teapots? Well, this teapot was the foundation for LogoLounge. It was the idea. Because if someone in England could upload a teapot to a website like that, if Meg and Riley could do that, then designers could certainly take logos that were on their computer that they had designed and upload them to a site to provide context. And again, the great thing about eBay is it gave context, because you could sort based off of a keyword that you put in there. You could sort based off of, I'm just looking for antique teapots. I'm just looking for brand new teapots. I want a teapot that's made out of silver. So if you could do the very same thing with logos, what would happen? Now, that was 1995, and that was the impetus for this idea. But it wasn't the creation of the idea, because frankly, it took 5 years worth of thinking about this idea. Let's give it 4 before I actually found Troy Tabor, who did the architectural design and construction of the site itself and made it function the way that he did. Before I ran into Kathy Fischel, who would do the editorial writing on it, and Brian Miller, a partner in it, who guided with design input, and Gail Lease, who guided with marketing input. But this was the opportunity in there for me to take advantage of the contacts that I had made over the years. because over the years I had come to know many, many designers worldwide through the development of AIGA here in Wichita, where we are. And I reached out to him and I said, I've got this stupid idea. As a matter of fact, I can remember I had just judged the Communication Arts Annual and was speaking to Patrick Coyne, and I threw this idea out at him, and he said, Bill, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And, I don't hold that against him, but, it was something where if you've got a dream to make something like this happen, make it happen. Don't just bury it. And it took that 4 years worth of thinking about it and meeting Troy to be able to kind of put this thing in action. And we went out to designers that we knew, like these logos that you see on this page are from Chermoff, Geismar, and Willoughby Design, and Michael Vanderbilt, and Hornell Anderson, and Keith Bright, and Addis Design, and Simon Getz, and Michael Cronin, and as Device, and and Landor, and all of these people I went to, and I said, you know what? If you will upload your logos to this site, and that was new to them, other designers can take a look at those logos, and you can look at their logos, and it will serve as this giant book, except it will have context because it's highly searchable. Okay, we're going to get to that. As we opened this up, there was no advertising, no marketing. It opened up in January of 2002. It actually opened up in December of 2001. It was right after 9/11 had occurred. The economy was at its absolute worst time it could potentially be. But designers embraced it. And it was because of that we started to meet a lot of designers. And it was an introduction for many designers. Felix Sockwell was a designer from Texas that contacted me. He'd moved to New York, and he was designing with this wonderful linear kind of style, and said, I'm going to buy a membership. And it was a $100 membership. And we started with just 2,000 logos that we had seeded in with our foundation members that we gave lifetime memberships to. That then people had to start paying money. And the fact that somebody would pay $100, an annual membership of $100 in order to see logos and a limited quantity of logos. And Felix Sockwell was one of the very first ones to jump in. And I said, who else do I need to get in here? He says, there's this guy named Von Glitchka. Von Glitchka's up in Oregon. I think you ought to contact him. He's been designing playing baseball cards, and he could probably draw a logo or two, and he might get in there. So Von Glitchka came on board. Now, one of the things that I understood was that designers may not get the idea of this site, but that they did get the idea of awards for their work. And designers were accustomed to spending $10, $20, $50, $100 a piece for entries to various competitions, not knowing whether or not they might end up winning. But at that time, you could walk into a designer's office and, how good they were was based on how much lucite was sitting up on top of the shelf, or how much silver trophy was sitting up on top of the shelf, or God forbid a gold trophy sitting on top of the shelf. And that was the part that designers understood. But the idea of finding logos on the internet, you could go to Google and you could type in horse logo, and it might pull up a real misfit batch of them. But because people were paying money to be a member of this site, it was meaning that there was a higher level of design. Now, I will tell you that the other thing that we knew was that if we had a competition, that we could put out a book. So Kathy Fischel and I started to write book number 1. And when book number 1 was a week from release, I went on to Amazon and it was listed on there. And as I looked at it, I was going, we're on there. And you scroll down and it says where your book ranks. And I think the book ranked number 1,867,000. I forget what it was, but it's kind of like, there's only 1 million books that are better than mine. But within a 3-month period of time, the book had jumped to the top in branding and logo design, to the top in advertising and graphic design, and to the top in graphic design techniques. And it was at that point that we kind of figured out, we may have something that's actually working here. And over the years, we've just completed our 12th book. We're getting ready for book number 13. Book number 12, we expanded to 3,000 logos because just frankly, it's just so big. And it's that many great logos. I think we had close to 40,000 logos submitted just for that book. And for book 13, which just closed a couple of weeks ago, the call for entry, as we're putting that together, I believe we had 38,000 logos that were submitted by our members. More than 20,000 members from around the world have uploaded to LogoLounge over the years to create a database of over 380,000 logos that are highly searchable and contextualized so you can find them. So this is our panel of jurors that are going to be going through those logos and deciding what belongs in book 13. And it's an international panel of who's who. And I will tell you that one of the great things that we discovered about LogoLounge is that recognition means so much. And for that level of designer to recognize those designers around the world as having produced exceptional logo design means a great deal. This is a picture of Mark Hiron. Mark's a friend of mine now. Mark's a young designer from London, and Mark, unasked for, put an unboxing on YouTube on his Creative Waffle podcast, and it had him opening up the LogoLounge book that he received, he'd purchased, and it was the first time Mark had ever been in print. And I want you to think for just a minute. Maybe you've been in print before, maybe you've not, but there is that moment when you realize there is your work, and it's on a printed page, that Mark actually welled up and started to tear up as he opened up this book and saw that. And, this is one of the great things, is it's developed great friendships. This is Mark and I at the Creative South Conference in Columbus, Georgia, along with Von Glitchka and Paul Howalt. But, there's this fraternity, there's this sorority, there's this gathering of designers that are into identity design. And this has given so many designers a chance to be well recognized within the community and to connect with other designers. It's the kind of thing where if you just go on and you search LogoLounge under Google search, you find all these wonderful designers who are saying, look, I made it into the book, I'm holding up the book. And, there's nothing better than to be able to open up one of these books and find that, there's a great logo in there that was one that they had designed. It's just seeing that in print means so much to them. If you keep looking around the internet, you find that there's a lot of posting about the logos that they get in there, a lot of pictures of the books on the shelves, about the awards that they've gotten from it. But let me come back to the contextualization of logos. When somebody loads a logo onto LogoLounge, the idea was originally that they were able to both search what other designers were doing, as well as put theirs up there. And the reason they would search was so that they could see if there was relevance to something that somebody else was doing that might influence their design or might leave an impression with them, and also to see to it that you weren't doing something that somebody else had. So by typing in horse, and you can also go, there's many ways you can contextualize. You can search by industry, you can search by keyword, you can search by geography, by the designer themselves, by a time period, by the quality of it, whether it's typographic or whether it's a symbol, so that you can really home in on just what you're looking for. As opposed to me going through all those books and post-it noting, here they are. There are my horses, my horse logos that I needed, and I clicked on, just show me the horses that have been in books before. So that's what I get. I get a total of 400 and some different horses that have been published in the books over the years. Or I can pull that off and I can see that there's somewhere in the zone of 2,200 different logos of horses in there that I can pull up and look at all of the additional information, just like on eBay with what's coming up. So this is how the site got started. And this is what it does for an individual. And you found that $100 is a very minimal amount when it comes to being able to upload every logo that you've got to the site and the possibility of it being accepted in a book. But even more importantly, that $100 just to be able to see the amazing work and put your work with it and to use it for inspiration and to be able to push trends forward to the next level because you can track how the trajectory of design is moving. When you start to talk about those members, we charted it out, and obviously population centers, but that's where our membership is around the world, and it literally is. Now, I'm looking for a little bit more pop down in Brazil. I think that we've got some amazing design that comes out of there, but I'm really looking for a little bit more effort out of them. It also has meant that we've been able to do a lot of travel around the world. And by travel, you know, it's mostly me having an opportunity to speak to other designers. I do a presentation on logo trends and where design is trending. And I think that this is one of the things that designers are in love with, seeing somebody else show their portfolio, yes, but for them to be able to see their own work in presentations and see how it is moving design forward and what they've done, how that is shifting the way that design is done, is what comes out of our trend reports. We'll talk a little bit more about the trend reports. The jacket you see behind me, well, we figured out early on the colors were orange for LogoLounge. And at one point I decided I'm going to order the absolute ugliest jackets that I can possibly find off of eBay and bring them in and patch them up and have the designers use these jackets when they go to a conference. And it's become somewhat of an icon itself because everybody wants to borrow the jackets and put them on and go around the conference wearing a LogoLounge jacket. Sometimes you just never know what's going to work. That worked. The other thing that this has led to is doing a textbook on logo design. And over the years, we have done so much with logo design that we put together Logo Creed, which has become a text used by universities and schools across the world for actually teaching logo design and talking about breaking the process down into discovery, development, and design, and how you can end up taking those three entities and taking a subjective idea and making it objective so that the owner of a business appreciates it and understands the value from a dollar perspective that design brings to their business. A lot of different books that we've written, but we were also invited to be authors for LinkedIn Learning. And if you go on LinkedIn Learning, there's probably close to a dozen different courses that you'll find under Bill Gardner or LogoLounge, where we really have taken not only the trends within logo design, which we explain thoroughly, but we've also taken the symbology behind logos so that you understand why nature works for logos. You understand why geometry works for logos, why handcrafted works for logos, all of these things. Plus, we've taken the book that you just saw, Logo Creed, and broken that down into a series of 3 courses on actually design, development, and discovery within logo design. If you go on and you do a little bit of search, you'll find that the trend report is pretty much everywhere as you start taking a look on the internet. But we've also been honored that it's not just designers who look at this trend report, but it's also the people in business. Forbes, Fortune Magazine, Fast Company, Identity, Creator Review, Graphic Design USA, all consistently annually do a feature on what those trends are within design. And lastly, whether you buy a membership or not, one of the greatest values that you can find on LogoLounge, which is on the outside, it's free, is the Logo Trend Report. And it is every report going back to 2003. So that as you take a look at those reports, you can actually see the progression of design within logos and how it's moved our industry forward. You know, one of the greatest prides in creating a tool of the nature of LogoLounge is not just the community that it develops of the thousands of designers around the world that engage in and love and are invigorated by identity design, but it's the fact that it gives them a place to be able to share. And sharing is what allows design to move to the next level. Everybody can take a look at a jacket that somebody's wearing and go, you know, that looks really out of date. Or they can take a look at an album and kind of pinpoint the decade it came from. Logo design is much the same way. It goes through different pendulum swings and it moves at different paces. But unless you are keeping up with and looking at what's happening in logo design and seeing the progression that it's making, you may be always designing for yesterday. And I encourage everybody to think about not just where they are, but how they got there. And LogoLounge gives you that opportunity. I encourage you to go to LogoLounge. If you join us, it's a $100 annual membership. Thank you very much for inviting us. And I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to take a peek behind the curtains at what made LogoLounge happen.